So the second performance happened in the intermission, thanks to Claire Potter. So if you caught it, you're very lucky to have done so. It's my great pleasure to work with the third performance, James Byrne and Sandeep Parmar.
Myth of the savage tribes, myth of civilized nations.
The agents of global capitalism didn't understand that they weren't going to send anyone home. Stuart Hall. The sign at Widnes train station reads, "Buy your conquest sheds here."
Cruelty, my witness among race makers. The myths of the savage tribe, primitive germs of nature. The savage who does not know his own history unless determined by the good omen of the English bull will always tame the foreign hare.
A dark, faceless cargo,
X.
preparing to be remade at the instant of arrival.
O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. Psalm 22.
A boy smoking in the rain outside the Belmont Spitz. What are you looking at, you stupid fucking packy?
Spring break, 85, dancing on ice, Wembley Arena. Auntie Sandra's encoded theatre of compliance, and the animal of my grandfather locked in a razored glare, fixed on the figure skate, the sequined show only to pull us in. Look at the coon, a darky John Travolta.
What are you looking at, you stupid fucking packy?
And with this, my grandfather, Henry, twiddles his handlebar tash, opens the flint furnace of his mouth, and splits inside his own laughter. Blood vertigos the brain, fistballs in an open palm.
And I should have said, there is no champagne in Anfield. No Welsh in the Welsh streets of Toxteth, the tinned-up houses. There is no democracy in the home counties. No racism in Norwich because there are no black people. No black in the Union Jack, no union in flag. No tragedy in the north, like an immigrant boy waiting in the rain, with flowers for Wills and Kate. Like a native of the Commonwealth doing native dances for Prince Philip. No revolution without the roll of the monarch's crown down the stone scaffold to the bloodied ghosts of empire.
Coon, he said, flinchless before the ice, in the deadly seat of his pillory. From raccoon, from the Portuguese barracus, sale house for bartered slaves, or George Dixon, a.k.a. Dixie Coon, blackface minstrel dandy, stage named Zip Coon, singing Coal Black Rose. Meet the hand of your friend at the Hawthorn, grandfather. His song scalds the devil's water, and you are with him, unsunk stone of time and hate.
I should have said, I came here only to buy champagne. I should have said, what are you looking at? Do you even know what you're looking at?
At Loftus Road in the family stand, his gorilla grunting noises, my body well of panic, moistened underarms as my grandfather scuffles with a Jamaican pensioner from Liverpool. The crowd swivels its 1,000 heads and faces us. Buried mirror of my face, dilated hieroglyphs of I. Lovely Rosa, Sambo come, don't you heard banjo tum tum tum, oh Rose, the coal black rose.
Snow, snow, I have eaten snow, I have made myself from snow, I have built my house on snow. Snow for 6 long months a year, the miserable whiteness of snow.
I would introduce you to my grandmother, sweetheart, but now, at last, in the iron of her cancer, dark bile in her voice on meeting strangers, throne of scrutinizing glances. She would look you over not as a granddaughter, but as some kind of voodoo.
The myths of the tribes console only those who remember. The myths of nations are not the songs of men singing freely and without hatred. This ageless land, the only faultless thing.
When the first Pakistani family moved into Narcot Lane, circa Churchill's swindle years, she turned over the face of a newly brown baby and shook like a burning tree, and said to her Henry, "It's like aliens off a spaceship landed in our own backyard." And the child woke from sea sleep, his mother petrified into flame.
The transmigration of souls in the lower psychology, metempsychosis, a challenge to the life of the individual, from man to beast to man, in the guise of animal who rots inwardly under the buxom sign of war. What can be said of the civilized mind that was in a previous life a gibbous oyster, mumbling absently to itself like a scholar along the seafloor?
Phil came back from his work in the Navy with a young, wincy Sri Lankan thing. Didn't speak a word, black as a spade. She sat on the front lawn all morning, all day, cross-legged, half-naked. Kindness passed one like that. Tapped in the head, I said, poor Phil, I said to him, be kind to yourself and be kind to her.
He who is bound in the chains of deed dies eating the fruits of past actions. Only the barbarian dreams of his dead kinfolk, but only the savage ignores their warnings.
E.B. Tyler, Primitive Culture, Volume 2, 1871. The Aborigines of Australia have expressed this theory in the simple formula: black fellow tumble down, jump up white fellow.
They will not come to me in this frozen land where horses and sheep claw at the dead soil. Defeated, their mouths empty, their lips, like the oracles, ripped apart by the theories of God.
Anonymous, Barbados. The devil was in the Englishman, that he makes everything work. He makes the Negro work. He makes the horse work.
Exquisite memory for his enemy, like heroic song.
The belief in the new human birth of the departed soul led West African Negroes to commit suicide when in distant slavery, that they may revive in their own land. Primitive Culture, Volume 2.
To wake up in my own distant land, to hear the sounding of its birth, the infinite phantom who readies a feast for souls blown through with the whiteness of winter's glass. Before the lamps go out, let us pass, before the devil drags his crooked tail through the darkened aisles of our small and hopeless cathedrals.
The Duke of Wellington, describing his own army, the scum of the earth, the mere scum of the earth.
The Bulgarian at the fountain, who is obliged to throw water from his bucket to the thirsty serpent, who is anyway going to slip between his bed sheets or strangle his children after he has done all he can to appease it.
There is a forgotten, nay, almost forbidden word, which means more to me than any other, and that word is England. Winston Churchill.
The tree worship of the Hamadryad, Apollonian nymph, lovely and sapless, strange pleasure, her white marrow.
Poetry is full of myth. The mental condition of the lower races is the key to poetry. Primitive Culture, Volume 2.
Deafness cultivated a fog, a bruise, an oar-split path, unbroken, weaving on the lighted wounds of chronic wandering.
Where barbaric hordes groped blindly, cultured men can often move forward with clear view. It is a harsher and at times even painful office of ethnography to expose the remains of crude old culture which have passed into harmful superstition, and to mark these out for destruction. Primitive Culture, Volume 2.
Sublimated to the poorly signposted Slavery Museum, the third floor crimes of empire repeat. Customary histories, fantasized and fetishized ruins of nations or tribes, as they are described in the adverts of the savage trade.
Anonymous journal entry, 25th of May, 1756. The slave was returned to the estate after having run away. Thistlewood gave him a moderate whipping, picked him well, and made Hector, another slave, shit in his mouth. Immediately a gag, whilst his mouth was full, and was put on him and made to wear for 4 or 5 hours.
The fetish woman answers in a thin, whistling voice, and with the old-fashioned idioms of generations past. Primitive Culture, Volume 2. He catch old Cuffy by the wool, he dick him on the shin, which laid him breathless on the ground and made the nigger grin.
Historians have wondered how Thistlewood could be at once tender with the slaves and yet so brutal. When John Thistlewood drowned, Fibber was disconsolate, ill with grief.
I lose my way, and between MLK and the white, unequivocally glass-cased KKK, to fix on a photograph of the embering remains of a lynched torso framed by a horde of men. The museum builds its own superstitious myth, deflecting anger in collages of guilt. History inscribes itself over the silence it has made.